We've got Jacob from one of our amazing ecosystem partners, Decentology. Jacob, did you want to unmute and tell us a little bit about you and Decentology and what you've got that you'll be presenting today?
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much, Albert. First of all, and I see a ton of friendly faces here, both in the Flow community and on the Flow and Dapper team. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to me today. I'm going to be talking about something that Decentology is doing. I'm a smart contract developer at Decentology, and we're launching something called HyperHack. So let me actually share my screen. And is it okay if I just dive right into things?
Please, and thank you
Okay.
for doing so.
Of course, yeah. So yeah, once again, thank you everybody. So I'm currently sharing my screen, and what you're hopefully seeing is something that we're calling HyperHack. So I'm at decentology.com/hyperhack, and this is sort of our landing page for a hackathon that we're doing during the month of November. So you're probably wondering what this even is, and so that's sort of going to be the point of this presentation. I'm going to just go over a broad overview of what HyperHack is and a short little demo to kind of go over it. So, and if you have any questions throughout this demo, feel free to just reach out to me afterwards, or I'll go over that in a bit. So yeah, so Decentology. So we are currently we're calling it the alpha launch of Hyperverse. Hyperverse is a network of composable smart contracts that we're initially launching on the Flow blockchain. So we're really excited, and we're actually partnering with the lovely Flow team, as you'll see here, for this hackathon. And so this is open to all developers, whether you're Web 2, Web 3. If you have no knowledge of Web 3, that's totally fine. You don't even have to have too much developer experience. It truly is open to everybody. And so if you are curious or registering, you can click this button here. But let's actually go into a bit of what HyperHack is. So it's really a means of onboarding a bunch of people, like I said, regardless of developer experience, into the Web3 ecosystem, and also to get people introduced to this composable network of smart contracts that we're launching. And so this really gives you the ability to learn about the Decentology's Hyperverse, share your ideas through written or visual content, and I'll go over that in a second, and also build an actual DApp using the composable smart contracts that we've developed. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this Get Started link, and this is going to take us to the documentation page for HyperHack. And I'm just going to walk through what are some ways you can actually get participating and stuff like that. So you can read through this, but I'm actually going to skip to the categories of participants and how you can actually participate in this hackathon. So there's three main categories. One is called Thinker. And this category is for anyone who wants to, may not want to develop, but to make content about the Hyperverse. And so what we even said is that you could make TikToks about the Hyperverse. You could make funny videos. You could literally do anything that comes to mind, any creative project. That content would really just focus on stuff that you're learning about the Hyperverse and smart contracts on Flow while participating in this hackathon. The second step here is called Scholar, and this is sort of anyone that wants to write a blog about best practices, about building composable smart contracts on the Hyperverse and stuff like that, or building a DApp. And then the third category here is Tinker, and so these are people that are actually going to be developing dApps using the composable smart contracts. And this is sort of the short little demo that I'm going to be showing in a second. And then the fourth category here is Ninja, and this is anybody that just this is sort of the overall grand prize for anyone that participates in the previous three categories. They can win a grand prize here. We got a fun little Naruto reference if anyone has watched that show. So we're actually gonna get started here, and there's some short descriptions of stuff that I just went over, but I'm sort of gonna go over this Tinker category here about actually building dApps. And so if we go to this page here called Cloning the HyperHack repository from GitHub, there's some short little steps of how to actually sort of get this repository onto your system so you can actually launch this little repo that we have set up. And so I hope that you can see my terminal screen here. I've already git cloned this onto my computer, and I've already done the whole yarn process just to save some effort here. Of course, I would love to sit and chat through the wonderful yarn process, but I figured that would probably take a little too much time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to yarn start this project and get it running. And what it's going to do is start setting up my application. So it'll launch this web page here called Decentology.dev, and it's just going to do some quick setup here. And then I'm just going to walk through what composable smart contracts even are and what are some ways you can actually get developing on the Hyperverse. So it brings us to this initial page called client. And so as a tinker, what you're going to be doing is actually developing dApps on the Hyperverse. Now, the goal is that because this hackathon doesn't actually require any Web3 experience, we've done all the Web3 coding for you. So we've created the contracts, we've created the transactions and scripts, and so we've done all of that and published them as modules. And so if you go to the playground on the left-hand side here, you'll see there's actually 7 different modules that you can pick from to start interacting with the Hyperverse. So we've set up a simple hello world. We've set up a simple NFT, a fungible token here, some marketplaces, and another one called tribes, which I'm going to go more in depth on in a second. So all the Web3 sort of code and Cadence code has already been done for you. And so if you're interested, of course, you could check out this code, and I'd be happy to walk through this with anybody. But yeah, so these modules are out there for you. And the idea is that as a tinker, you'll sort of be pulling these modules together and creating a dApp around them to sort of create a fun experience. And so if I go to this client here, this is a sample application that you would be making as a tinker that uses the dApps or uses the smart contracts we've deployed to actually make your own dApp. And so to kind of give a brief explanation of what composable smart contracts even are, you can think of contracts that are already deployed to the blockchain that you didn't develop, that someone else developed and they put out there on the Hyperverse, and you sort of pull them into your own smart contracts or your own applications and start using them. And so if you're interested in that, that's a whole separate discussion that we could, if you have any questions about that, you could reach out to me afterwards if you're curious about the Hyperverse. But I sort of wanted to jump into a demo here while I have the time. So what we're looking at now is a sample application on the Hyperverse that uses smart contracts that are already deployed to the blockchain. And so if we click to sort of get started, you'll see that it's going to give us a little warning here that says, in order to get this project running, we actually need to run a transaction in our playground. And so let's actually go back to our playground and start initializing accounts, which is part of the standard flow process to actually get our module going. So what I've done is I've clicked on one of the modules, and this is called Tribes. And so there's a bunch of what we call action cards here. And so these are individual transactions and scripts that, again, you don't have to write any of the code for. These are all just little buttons and account widgets that you can select from. So for example, if we wanted to run this transaction called instance, which will actually set up our admin account, we could select the admin account and then click submit. And boom, it'll run a transaction on a local emulator for us, give us the transaction hash and this amazing green box saying, hey, you've done an amazing job, you're good to go. And so all of these little boxes here are, like I said, individual transactions and scripts you can run. And so the Tribes module, just to give a brief explanation, is a smart contract where users can join what we call tribes. And these tribes are sort of set up by the admin account. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to create a new tribe with a sample name, a description, and an image for our tribe. And so let's actually do that together. So this tribe name I'm just going to call like dragons, and the description is going to be a bunch of cool dragons. And I'm going to click on Browse Files here, and I'm going to go to my downloads and just click on this, this little image here. And this is going to pull up a little dragon image. And so this is all being put onto IPFS, which is a decentralized storage network that I'm going to be using to upload my file. And so we're going to click on Add a New Tribe. We're going to submit this. And look, the transaction went through, which is awesome, right? So now that we've done this, let's actually go back to our client and click on Join a Tribe here. And so what's going to happen is it's going to list the tribe that we actually just created. And so this is sort of an example of how you would interact with the the modules that are already deployed onto the blockchain to actually get a cool application running. And so I can bring up the code in a second here, but let's actually go through this sort of process. So if I want to select my tribe, I can click on Dragon, and then now I'm actually in the Dragon tribe. So in the background, it just ran a transaction to actually have my account, which is currently hard-coded in the client, to one of the accounts that we were showing before to actually join this Dragon's tribe. And so you can see there's an image here, there's a name, there's a description, and it's getting all of this information from the blockchain. And so you're probably wondering, well, if I'm setting up my client application, how am I going to, communicate with the blockchain if I don't know any Web3 code? Well, that's totally fine. Like I said before, we've actually set up the transactions and scripts for you and documented each of them so that you can just make those calls to the blockchain to get this information. And so if we wanted to, we could, leave this tribe. And so if I click leave, that'll run a transaction to leave the tribe. And now we're back to the sort of home screen here. And so if we wanted to, we could set up a client for all of these modules. We could even combine them together. We could use tribes and a simple non-fungible token. Maybe you want an application where if you have an NFT, you're allowed to join a tribe, right? So maybe we're using these two together. So you can do really a bunch of things here. You can pull from, all 7 of them if you wanted to. That would get, I guess, a little crazy. But you could really do whatever you want, and we're just opening this up to sort of any developer to be able to come in here and sort of start working with blockchain code, or more specifically, Cadence code, without having to have extensive experience about that. And so just to sort of wrap up here, if you have any questions about this, like I said, please feel free to reach out to me, on Twitter, on Discord, on literally anything. We also are hosting office hours 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I believe on Monday and Friday it's at 2 p.m. Pacific time, and on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And those office hours are really, again, for anybody, whether you're a Web 2 developer, Web 3 developer, anything at all, to sort of answer your questions on how to get building. We also have some tabs on the side here. Here's a HyperHack tab to find all the resources you may need when developing on the Hyperverse. A support page here as well to help you in your journey. And also, like I said before, this isn't just for developers per se, but it's also, there's these thinker and scholar categories. You can make TikToks about what modules you might create. I'm not a creative person myself, but if you looked at this and you said, hey, I can make a really cool tribes module with simple NFT, and you want to do a cool little TikTok dance or YouTube video, or literally make a blog or anything at all, feel free to do so, and you can compete for some cool prizes. So I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to field any questions that you guys may have.
Well, Jacob, first of all, you can take all the time you like. What you've just gone over is so awesome. Wow, like I'm kind of speechless, and a lot of people side slack me while you were presenting, just to express how cool they think all this is.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, great. If anybody wants to, chime in with a question, I see someone's unmuted. Please go ahead.
Question?
Mac, go ahead.
Yeah, this looks really great. I think having a no-code tool in the Flow ecosystem for building and composing smart contract systems is a huge win. So awesome work.
Thank you
just
so
wondering,
much, Nick.
yeah, just wondering what, if any, future plans in terms of like smart contract modules or anything else you have for this.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So this is actually sort of our initial launch of the Hyperverse. And so, like I was saying earlier, the Hyperverse is sort of like a composable like network of smart contracts, and so that can kind of get confusing. It's like, what does that actually mean? I know that threw me off for a while, but really, what that means is that there's going to be sort of a entire ecosystem of smart contracts that are developed by Cadence developers, and so they'll put them onto the Hyperverse, which is sort of like this marketplace for smart contracts. And anyone that wants to use them will be able to pull from those smart contracts to use in their own dApp. And so it's sort of like a modular system where if someone's like, hey, I really want to be able to code out an NFT contract with, X, Y, and Z functionality, they can code that contract, they can put it out on the Hyperverse, and then anyone that wants to use that can pull that into their own applications and use that as they wish. And there's a lot of sort of technical details around that. We're thinking that the goal is that we'll also have like a built-in insurance layer around those smart modules that are out there on the Hyperverse, we'll have auditors actually constantly reviewing those smart contracts and staking tokens on the success of those contracts, so that there is sort of that built-in insurance layer for anyone using those smart contracts. And we're also thinking about having sort of a discoverability around this, so that we'll have sort of like you can imagine like a web page out there where someone will type in, hey, I want an NFT contract, and a bunch of different NFT contracts will come up that are sort of different in their own modular way. Maybe one of them mints an NFT in some certain way, and another one does it in a different way, like in a batch or something like that. It's really anything you can imagine. And the other sort of idea there is that the developers that develop those smart contracts will be able to put them on the Hyperverse, and actually anyone that uses those smart contracts will actually pay a fee to the original developer, the auditors, etc. And so you can sort of view it as like an infinite stream of revenue for the developers that actually are coding those smart contracts. And so that's sort of why we call it sort of like a marketplace of smart contracts. And what this also means is that, sort of back to your original question, if you have no Web3 experience, these modules will have transactions, scripts, contracts already out there, so that if you're just a DApp developer that doesn't know too much about Cadence, you can pull in that whole module that maybe even depends on other modules. It can really extend far, and they'll be able to pull those into their application and just run a transaction without having to write any code. So that's sort of the hope there, and this is our initial launch of that. But this will hopefully and potentially grow into a much larger ecosystem.
Oh yeah, interesting. Thanks for the answer. There's a lot in there. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That's game changing, Jacob. Wow. I mean, being able to create experiences on a blockchain without having to, know at a very high level, what's happening underneath the hood is a really special thing. We pride ourselves on having users not know that they're on a blockchain, but taking that a step further and making it so that developers really are kind of separated from that layer of complexity is really awesome. Did anybody else have any questions for Jacob while we have him?
I have a question. I was wondering if once you build a project, you are still learning the blockchain and everything, but then you eventually might grow up and you have to build other things. Is there a way also to like export all your project and start building it custom, or it would be locked in and you would have to stay?
Oh no! So yeah, so if you developed an application for HyperHack, you could take that application and continue with it as much as you want. The goal is not to lock anyone into their sort of submission, but to allow people to sort of get developing and get their initial dApps going, and you can take that in whatever direction you wish.
Awesome! That's great.
Sweet. Well, are there any other questions?
Yeah, might have one question. I was curious about how you came up with sort of the initial feature set of all these different no-code smart contracts that you can combine together. And do this feature set vary from the Flow blockchain to Ethereum or others that you support as well?
So I think you're asking about how did we come up with like the initial like ideas for the modules, if I'm not mistaken. Is that your question?
Exactly, the building blocks. Exactly.
Yeah. So the truth is that I've been developing on Flow for quite a while now, and I at least what I wanted to do was say, hey, like we definitely should have like an NFT module. We should definitely have a fungible token module, a marketplace, right? Because those are pretty common on Flow. So those were sort of like the initial ideas. And then I started branching out like, maybe it'll be cool if we have sort of a tribes module where an admin can create a bunch of different tribes and people can join them. And this was sort of me just, thinking like, oh, if someone wants to create an application, for example, the tribes one that I showed, what would people find interest in? And so like something like the tribes, for example, I thought would be pretty interesting. You could do dragons, alchemists, and warriors, or you could do Star Wars lovers, Star Trek lovers, and Indiana Jones lovers. You could really do any sort of tribe system you want. So it was me just basically trying to say, hey, what would allow most people to sort of get developing on the Hyperverse? A good question.
Cool, thanks.
Right on. Would anybody else like to unmute and ask a question? And maybe introduce yourself, too. That would be kind of nice to know who's asking. Got quite a group here. Jacob, thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Did you want to say one more time how folks can get in touch with you and participate?
Yeah, of course. So you can join our Discord. It's discord.gg/Decentology. You can DM me on Twitter. You can DM me on Discord. My Twitter is Jacob M. Tucker if you have any questions. Literally anything at all. I'd be happy to answer any and all questions. And yeah, I'd like to thank the Flow team once again, and all of you that are part of the Flow community for listening to me.
And we'd like to thank you for all the work you've done and for hanging out with us today and presenting all that awesome stuff. Looking forward to seeing how that develops and checking in.
Awesome.
Right.